Two. All right, we're doing calculator skills. We're doing domain and range of quadratic functions. And then, if we have time, we'll review the things that you should already know how to do with quadratic functions. You should know how to find zeros, otherwise known as roots, otherwise known as x-intercepts. You should know how to do that in your calculator. You should know how to find the vertex with your brain and your calculator. You should know how to find and correctly record the axis of symmetry as the equation of a vertical line. And then today we're going to add some other skills to our skill bank. Are you ready? All right, here is my function rule. F of x equals x squared plus 6x plus 8. That is a function rule written in function notation. What does f of x mean? It just means y, guys. It's just a fancy way to say y. So if you don't like f of x, then rewrite it as y. Where do you go if you are given a function rule? What's the first thing you should do? Go to y equals and put it into your calculator. Okay, so y equals x squared plus 6x plus 8. Now, we have done lots and lots of stuff with quadratic functions. First of all, how do I know this is a quadratic function? It's got an x squared. If it's got an x squared, and that's the highest exponent in the whole equation, then that is going to make a quadratic function. What's another name for the picture it makes? A parabola. Those two words are kind of interchangeable. So if I tell you I'm thinking about a parabola or a quadratic equation, you should know it means this kind of equation that's got an x squared in it. Sorry. Okay, now, what do you know how to do with this so far? You could find the roots. How would I find the roots? Put another function in of y equals 0 and see where they intersect. Sometimes they don't, but sometimes you will intersect. Okay, what else can you do with this? You can find the vertex, I hope. Half brain, half calculator by doing the opposite of b over 2a, and then what do? Look at your t-chart and look at cross from the answer you get for x and find the y that goes with it. Now, this is what we're going to do today. Here is my function rule. F of x equals x squared plus 6x plus 8. Your directions are to find f of 2.78. This is some calculator skills. It's also making sure you understand what information they're giving you and what information they're asking you for. What am I giving you here? I'm giving you an x value. That is not a y value. Because remember, this function notation is usually f of x. So in other words, they're telling you what x should be. X should be 2.78. What are they asking us to find? Okay, they are asking us to find the y. So in other words, they want us to find the y. Okay, so you have to know that's what it means when you see this. Now, how could you do it? We do know a way to do this already, and I'm going to show you a different way. The table set. You can control the table if you are given an x, which that's what they're giving me. That makes your life easy. It's much easier when they give you an x and want a y. Those problems are so easy. You could go to the table set, tell it to start at 2.78, and look at the t-chart. There is another way to do it, and I want to show you. Okay, so everybody should have that in their y equals screen. Y equals x squared plus 6x plus 8. Go to your calculate key. Remember, calculate and trace are the same key. What's the very first thing that pops up? Value. And the reason why I hesitated to show you this is because some kids don't understand when they're given an x value versus when they're given a y value. This only works when they're giving you an x value. So I kind of wish it said x value right there. Okay, we're going to calculate a given x value. We're finding the y because they gave us an x value. Okay, so I hit enter because it's already on value, and look what it's going to do. it's going to pop up x equals, and it's blinking. It's waiting for me to tell it what x equals. So this only works when I know what x equals. Do I know what x equals? Yeah, I know that x equals 2.78, and then I hit enter, and look what it does for me. 32.4084. I told you to write down 3 places, but this one actually terminates. When it never ends, then I usually like you to give me 3 places. The most accurate answer here would be 32.4084. I'd probably go ahead and accept 32.408 would be fine as well. Wasn't that easy? Well, now, the other way we knew how to do that was to go to the table of values. I would have to tell my table to start at 2.78. I can control the x's. I can control it in the table of values. I can control it in the calculate a value. And again, it's going to give me the same answer. If you don't hover over it and look at the bottom, you're not going to see the most accurate version. 32.4084. And I don't care which way you do it. I just want to make sure you understand what it is you're doing, what you're given, and what you are trying to find. Okay, let's do another one. Same function rule, so we don't have to keep punching stuff in. Here's my function rule. I want you to find f of negative 2.8. So what am I giving you? An x. What am I asking you to find? The y that goes with it. So my function rule, I didn't change the function rule, I just changed the x value I want you to use. So I'm just going to do the calculate way. I'm going to calculate the value that I was given. I was given the value, an x value of negative 2.8. And it's going to pop out the y value for me. What is it? Negative 0.96. Aren't these easy? We could do these all day long. You don't want to miss these on the end of course exam or the CBA. These are the easy questions. They give you a function rule. They give you an x value. All you got to do is use your brain and your finger and your calculator. Okay, now, let's say that I told you I'm thinking of a function. I didn't tell you anything about the function, except I told you that f of 4 equals 48. What am I telling you about the function? No, it doesn't mean multiply by anything. And that's what's tricky about function notation, because we're used to seeing a letter next to a number means multiply. That's the x. So basically, this is a fancy way to tell you a point on the function. What point is on this function? 4, comma 48. This is telling you if you put in a 4 for x, guess what you get back for y? A 48. Does that make sense? That's all it means. And that's what we just did on this problem. Like we found f of negative 2.8, remember? And what did it equal? Negative 0.96. That's just another way to write an x value and the y that goes with it. It might. They could give you, I just want to make sure you understand what function notation means. But they could give you an x, ask you to find the y, that's when your life is easy. Here's where it's a little trickier. And again, part of the battle is knowing what it is they're giving you and knowing what it is they're asking you to find. So look at this question. Where does f of x, the given function that I'm using, equal 6? This is different. This is not like the problems we just did. And it's not, to me this is more complicated. What am I giving you? I'm giving you a y value. Because what does f of x mean? Right, in other words, y equals 6. Yes, now good point. Did you hear what she just said? Where do you go when you know what the y is? You go to y equals. You cannot control the y values in the table set. You cannot control the y value when you have that option to calculate. So I cannot do this the way I just did the problems that we were working on. Because when I hit calculate, what is it asking me to tell it? An x value. It's not asking me to tell it a y value. I don't know the x value. That's what I'm trying to find. I know the y value. It's kind of like finding the zeros, except we're not finding the zeros, we're finding the sixes. So I'm going to go to y equals, my function rule is already there, y equals x squared plus 6x plus 8, and I want to know where does this have a y value of 6. F of x equals 6, that means y equals 6. Now look what's going to happen. It's going to draw a flat line with a y value of 6 across the picture. I'm looking for this point and this point. So how do I do that? You do it just like you do with zeros. You calculate where they intersect. So we're not finding the zeros, we're finding the 6's. So I do second function, calculate, intersection. Whatever one my cursor happened to be closest to, it's going to tell me that one first. Remember, it asks you 3 questions. Don't stop till you see the word intersection. Now, look at the y value it gives you once I have the word intersection. What's my y value? 6. That's what I knew when I started. I knew the y value had to be 6. I was trying to find the x value. What's the x value? Negative 0.354. That's one of them. This is going to equal 6 in 2 different places. I can see it from the picture. The other one's way over here. How do I get there? Well, first you got to hit trace, and then scroll over there to the left till you're on the other side. And then do it again. Second function, calculate, intersection, first curve, second curve, guess. And sure enough, I've got another x value. Look what the y value is. 6. So what's the other answer? Negative 5.645. Okay, you could write it, set notation, negative 0.354, comma, negative 5.645. You could write it as 2 separate x values, x equals this and x equals this. And if it was written as points, it would be negative 0.354, comma what? 6. We're not finding the zeros, we're finding the 6's. The other point would be negative 5.645, comma 6. But the biggest thing here is I want you to know when you're given an x value versus when you're given a y value. They're solved 2 completely different ways. Does that make sense? What if I asked you, where does f of x equal 0? What am I asking you to find there? Where does f of x equal 0? I'm asking you to find the x's, but specifically, what is this asking you to find? The roots, the zeros, the x-intercepts. That's what we've been doing, tons of those. So do that real quick. We've already got the function in there anyway. So we're not finding the 6's now, we're finding the zeros. And I'm going to calculate where they intersect. Now this one, on the older calculators, I can't see where it came in and graphed y equals 0, because what is y equals 0? It's the x-axis, which is already there. On your newer calculators, it does it in 2 different colors. It'll have the parabola in one color, and then it'll come across the x-axis in another color. But so just don't forget that you have to put in y equals 0. If you know the y value, you got to put it in y equals. And then you calculate where they intersect. First curve, second curve, guess. One of the zeros is negative 2. These were nice, easy zeros. Trace over to the other side. Second function, calculate, intersect. First curve, second curve, guess. A nice whole number for us. Negative 4 was the other zero. Are we good with that? Yeah, this one you could have actually factored. Okay, let me give you another function rule. Let's just practice some more. F of x equals negative x squared plus 4x minus 7. I'm going to ask you 2 questions. I want you to find where f of x equals negative 5. And I want you to find f of 2.8. 2 very different questions and 2 very different methods of finding the answers. Which one do you think is the easiest? Yeah, the bottom one. The bottom one is usually, I mean, it's not hard to do the top one, but it's trickier. What am I giving you on this part right here? The first question. I am giving you a y value. F of x is just a fancy way to say y equals negative 5. You're trying to find the what? The x's that go with negative 5. We're finding the negative 5's of this function. What x value makes this function equal negative 5? On number 2, I'm giving you an x value, and you've just got to find the y. That's Easy. Alright, so do both of those. Is this function ever going to equal negative 5? Yeah. It's going to equal negative 5 twice. Is this function ever going to equal 0? No, it doesn't have any roots. I can tell by looking at it doesn't have roots, but it does equal negative 5 in two different places. I can see that it's intersecting. Remember, when I know the y value, I need to put in y equals negative 5. It's going to draw a flat line across the parabola, and it absolutely intersects twice. So I'm going to do second function, calculate, intersection, first curve, second curve, guess. And sure enough, look what the y value is. I got a weird x value, but the y value is negative 5 there. What x value am I showing? 5.85. Oh, I'm sorry, 0.585. 0.585 is one place where this function equals negative 5. It's not the only place. It also happens over here. So I got to hit trace, get over to the other side, and do second function, calculate, intersection, first curve, second curve, guess. The other time it equals negative 5 is 3.414-ish. Are we good with that? Okay, so it's kind of like finding the zeros, except in this case we were finding the negative 5s. We know what the y is. Number 2 is much easier. I'm not finding the negative 5s anymore. I can just clear that out. They gave me a function rule and they gave me an x value. I can do that in the t-chart, or I can just calculate the x value they gave me. They gave me an x value of 2.8. I plug it in and it tells me the y value would be negative 3.64. Isn't that much easier? So it's easier when they give you an x, but that's not the only thing they're going to expect you to be able to do. If I give you an x, you should be able to find the y. If I give you a y, you should be able to find the x, or in this case the x's that happen twice. Alright, so that's one little thing. Here is your next little mini lesson, domain and range of parabolas. We did domain and range from a picture, but I just want you to know how you would find domain and range every single time given a parabola. Or sometimes it's called a quadratic function. Well, domain is super easy. So yeah, we've already done this from pictures, but I want to make sure we focus on what happens all the time with parabolas. What's the domain of every parabola you've ever seen? All real numbers. On every parabola, whether you're given a picture, whether you're given an equation, y equals x squared plus 6x plus 5. If you're given an equation, if you're given a picture, and you know it's quadratic, guess what the domain always is? All real numbers, because the little arrows, no matter if it's opening up or opening down, or if it's super skinny or super wide, the arrows go on forever to the left and right. So domain of any parabola, whether you know the picture, whether you know the equation, whether you are just told it's a parabola, that means the domain will always be all real numbers. Very good. Before I could even ask the question, what did you say? Yeah, the range is not all real numbers. The range depends on the vertex. Okay, so domain is always all real numbers. Now here's the exception, because I kind of hate to say always, because then kids catch me on it. This is not really a full parabola. Why? because it has endpoints. That domain is not going to be all real numbers. I'd have to look at the x value here and the x value here. But it's not really a true parabola. A true parabola has arrows. Does that make sense? Okay, so now let's talk about range. Range of a parabola or a quadratic function is not all real numbers. It depends on where your vertex is. So if you are asked to determine the range of a parabola, if you're given a picture, you look at the picture. If you're given an equation, you must find the vertex. You must find the vertex to be able to tell me where the what the range would be. Let's look at some from a picture. Let's say this is my parabola. What's the domain? All real numbers. Range, however, it doesn't go on forever to the top and bottom. It has a maximum point. It doesn't get any higher than this point. What is the vertex of this guy? Negative 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, positive 1, 2, 3. So here's my vertex at negative 6, 3. If I'm talking about range, do I care about x's? No. I care about the y value. That 3 is the highest this parabola will ever get. All the other y values are what? Guys, stop making that noise. All the other y values are what? Trey, say goodbye to your A. All of the other y values are what? Below it. So how would I write that for range? Now be careful, because they will probably put this answer choice down there. Y is less than 3. That's close, but not quite. Y is less than or equal to 3. 3 is definitely part of the picture. It's colored in. Okay, what if your picture was not a frown, but a smile? Look at this one. Here's my vertex at 2, 1. Again, if I'm talking about range, I don't care about x values. I care about y values. Y is greater than or equal to 1, because my lowest y value is this 1 right here, and all the other y's are above it. All the other y's are greater than or equal to the 1. Now, what if you don't have a picture, but you have an equation? So, what if we had y equals x squared minus 2x minus 3, and I want you to tell me the, well, first of all, let's do both, domain and range. Domain should be super easy. All real numbers. I can tell it's going to be a quadratic function. I can tell it's a parabola because it's got an x squared. That's always all real numbers. Range is a little trickier. Use your calculator. Well, half brain, half calculator to find the vertex. Well, let's find what the vertex is first, and then we can determine what the range will be. Is this a smile or a frown? It's a smile. So I can already tell that I'm going to start out y is greater than or equal to something, because I've got a lowest y value on a smile. I've got a minimum. So I'm going to find my lowest y value, and all the other y values have to be above it. Yes. Okay, so let's put this in here. Y equals x squared minus 2x minus 3, and just look at a picture of it. It's definitely a smile. So my lowest y value is somewhere down here. It looks like it's around negative 1, 2, 3. It looks like it's around negative 4. But I can't be sure. I've got to do some math here. I've got to find the vertex. So I'm going to do the opposite of b over 2 times a. The opposite of b would be positive 2 over 2 times 1. Then I'm going to look at my t-chart, because the x value, I need to find the y. But if I'm talking about range, I don't really care about the 1. I care about the y that goes with it. So I look at my table set. I'm going to tell it to start at 1. So the vertex of this guy is positive 1, negative 4. So even without a picture, I can tell the vertex is positive 1, negative 4, and I can tell it's going to be a smile. That means this is my lowest y value. All the other y values are what? Above it. So this would be the range of that parabola without even seeing a picture. Okay, so that's a skill you got to have. What's domain of all parabolas? All real numbers. What does the range of any parabola depend on? The vertex. Specifically, what part of the vertex? The y value of the vertex. Okay, so look at this picture. How would you describe the range? Would it be y is greater than or less than? Less than or equal to whatever the highest y value is. On this kind of picture, it would be y is greater than or equal to whatever the y value is. Okay, I'm going to give you the rest of the period to work on the assignment. It's 10 questions, and I've just asked random things. Let's look at the homework real quick. Where did I put it? Ah, there it is. Okay, look at number 1. Again, it's a random review of all the stuff we've done. Look at number 1. I'm asking you to find the positive root. What in the world do you think that means? Yeah, let me just tell you, there's 2 roots there. 2 x-intercepts, 2 zeros. One of them's a negative number and one of them's a positive. What's the only one I'm asking for? The positive. This one has roots. Look at number 2. The only thing I'm asking you to give me on number 2 is the vertex. Vertex is a point, so you better give me an x number and the y that goes with it. Look at number 3. What do I ask you to give me on number 3? The axis of symmetry. What should your answer start out as? X equals. Look at number 4. What am I giving you on number 4? It's an easy question. I'm giving you an x value. You just have to find the y that goes with it. However, look at number 5. Number 5, I'm giving you the y value, and you have to find the x that goes with it. And there should be 2 answers for number 5. It's going to equal -5 twice. Okay, and I was able to do these in about 10 minutes. Yes, I know I can go faster than you guys, but I'm giving you 20 minutes. I think that should be plenty of time to, if not finish, get a very good head start on this. And if you still have questions, please let me know.